Well, today's show is a reminder show. I am still running into individuals who periodically remind me that we get complacent. Sometimes we've done something so long that we get too comfortable. And in HR, come on, they're depending on us to keep them compliant. The whole show here is focused on helping you keep the company on solid ground when it comes to compliance. But we have had so many things moving and turning lately. I get it. I mean, I understand. You're all working on so many projects and so many things, and some of you are still shorthanded. It's understandable. But I owe it to each of you. I have to keep coming back and reminding you. We have to stay on top of things. Try your best to be proactive. And by listening to these podcasts or watching this show, you're demonstrating that. You're already 3 feet ahead of so many others. And I so want to applaud that. I really, really, again, we spend so much time listening and talking to so many of you. And I want to make sure that everything you get from these shows is meaningful and applicable, and you can apply it immediately. So this show today is on all the things that you really need to review because of all the changes that have been taking place. And, I know that if you were listening to the podcast here at the end of the year, I always talk about the fourth quarter audit. And one of those elements of the audit is just reviewing your handbook policies. But let's talk about that a little bit more. Here in October of 2023, the EEOC updated their policy. How many of you went into your handbook and updated your EEOC policy? Did you update your harassment policy? Have you reviewed any of those other policies to be assured that you're actually doing what you've published you're going to do? Remember, that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make is to put in a handbook or put somewhere in writing that you're going to do a particular procedure or process, and then you don't do it. Your company has evolved. You've moved on. You changed processes or plans, or it could even be a phone number to file a complaint. That needs to be updated. So I continually tell my clients that handbook needs to be reviewed once, if not twice a year. Just go through it. Just brush through. Challenge your management team to make sure they're speaking and talking and discussing and representing your policies as they are written. And if there are some hesitations or problems, that's the quickest way to identify when you need to update your handbook and policies. But one of the policies that we really have to watch right now is social media. And let me break that down a little bit further. New York just recently proposed a bill to control information that employers are now asking employees or have been asking employees in regards to their social media. Anything having to do with personal information and data in social media. So their passwords, their postings. This includes their blogs, their podcasts. If it has anything to do with personal information, New York doesn't want the employers to be aware of that or to be imposing on that. Now, anything that the company is paying for, subsidizing, or promoting, different story if this bill gets passed. But my point to you is understand that social media is an extension of your work environment. And you need to be aware of your state laws around social media. And you need to make sure that the social media policy that you have in writing is up to date and applicable, and that you can live with it. Another big one, which the National Labor Relations Board had a huge impact on, was severance agreements. If you have a severance agreement in your library of documents and it has not been reviewed in the past 6 months, I want you to pull it out tomorrow or today and make sure that your labor law attorney is reviewing that document. And I say that very seriously. Severance agreements are one of those non-negotiable documents, those legal documents that only a labor law attorney can properly review for you. Your HR consultant may not be the person to put that in front of. The National Labor Relations Board has pretty well butchered what we used to use as a severance agreement a year and 2 years ago. So anything you have that has not been reviewed needs to be rewritten. They're pulling out clauses of confidentiality. They want individuals, I used to call it the gag order, but they want individuals to be able to discuss freely with anyone, anything having to do with harassment or discrimination. They want open and free conversation about the compensation tied to a severance agreement. And let's think about that. That's a big part of that document. What you may be using, if you're not reviewing that, could be unenforceable. And why use a legal document if it's not going to be enforceable? So there's number 3 for you. And I'm just going to go right into the next big one, which is non-competes, your restricted covenants. Look, I have not been quiet about what we are seeing in terms of this massive flow of opinion about non-competes, non-solicitation agreements. And state after state after state are starting to eliminate the enforceability and the use of non-competes. In fact, California right now is requiring employers, 15 employees or more, to literally send out a notice for anyone who was hired after January 2022, I believe, and say, look, if you signed a non-compete, it's not enforceable, null and void. I know I've got it in your file, but can't do anything with it now. You are free. That's huge, absolutely huge. And other states are starting to follow in suit. I've got one company, a client, and I believe at our last count, they have employees in 25, 26 states. And you've heard me mention them on the show before. They literally have 6 different non-competes right now. I have to assign the non-compete depending on the state of residence of the employee. So please understand, if you're located in Missouri and your employee is in Wyoming, you have to follow the laws in Wyoming. You can't give them a non-compete that's acceptable in Missouri if it's not acceptable in Wyoming. Same thing with Ohio, Indiana. We can exchange between the 2 states, but we can't use one for the same one in Ohio as in Nebraska. I just rewrote that one here 2 months ago. So please understand, non-competes, restrictive covenants, again, a legal document that only your labor law attorney should be reviewing. If it hasn't been reviewed in 6 months, to be very truthful, let's do this. If you're hiring out-of-state workers, reach out to your labor law attorney and say, hey, you know my non-compete. Can I use this in that state? Can I use this one in that territory? And if you don't have a labor law attorney that can do that for you, you give me a call and I will give you the names of some really good, strong individuals that do this on a regular basis. That's very important. You do not want somebody leaving and taking half of your workforce with them just because you think your non-solicitation language is compliant when it actually isn't. And then there's the confidentiality agreements. We haven't seen a lot of major change in confidentiality outside of discrimination and harassment, but please be very wary again. If it hasn't been reviewed in the past year, I would definitely put that in line as well. Only Non-public proprietary information is considered confidential now. You have to understand those terms. You can't restrict anything that has anything to do with work conditions, terms of employment, compensation, anything that's out in the public. They're free to talk about. Confidentiality agreements are so important, and you need to have that information, that non-public proprietary information, protected. And these are forms that should be filled out at the time of employment. It should be a condition of employment. If somebody looks at you and says, well, I don't want to sign that, then I wouldn't be employing them. You have that right. And then the last one I'm concerned with are offer letters. If you haven't updated and reviewed your offer letters lately, would you please go back and do that? I looked at one yesterday, and I just get exhausted with individuals who, this is a fractional CFO. This is an individual who's basically a bookkeeper who came in and said, yeah, I can do all your financing, no problem. Oh, and you need HR? Yeah, I can do that. That's nothing. No problem. So she drew up what she believed to be an offer letter, and it was missing major points that absolutely cannot be, they just can't be overlooked. And again, I know I really pick on these younger individuals who haven't been in HR for very long, but you have to understand the consequences and the cost to your company if you take these risks and deal with people who don't know what they're talking about. Fortunately, this company felt a little uncomfortable with a couple other things the individual had done, and they reached out. I had worked with them 3 or 4 years ago, and they said, does this even sound right? I mean, could you take a look at this? And I said, there's a better way. There's a better way. So let's get you up to speed and get you in a better place. Offer letters are extremely important because, again, this is your first impression with the candidate. These are terms of employment that you are making with them, that you are bound to. An offer letter is not a contract, so you have to be very careful what language you're using there. A really good consultant will be able to tell you this. Your labor law attorney absolutely will insist on certain information being in there and certain terms used in an offer letter. And again, what's this to accomplish? Every bit of this is to accomplish to protect you so that you can do business the way you want to do and the way you need to do business. And your employees know that you're on the up and up, that you're a professional organization, and that they're being asked to sign a non-compete or they're being asked to sign a handbook. It's solid. It's rock solid. There's my list. And if you have any questions, give me a call. Please let me know how I can help you. That's what we're here for at the Human Resource.